Son, Hunter Biden, President Trump says, Sleepy Joe has real problems. Reminds me of Crooked Hillary and her 33,000 deleted emails. A lot of the Ukraine charges about you have been debunked and were unfair. There's one thing that a lot of Democrats even do wonder about, and that is Hunter Biden, your son, was getting paid a lot of money to serve on the board of a Ukrainian energy company facing serious corruption charges. You were the vice president running point on Ukraine. The average Joe hears that and says, that sounds fishy. What's your understanding of what your son was doing for an extraordinary amount of money?
I don't know what he was doing. I know he was on the board. I found out he was on the board after he was on the board, and that was it. And there's nobody.
Well, you've had a lot of time. Isn't this something you want to get to the bottom of?
No, because I trust my son.
But that doesn't.
I trust my son. I trust my son. I trust my son. That's Joe Biden's answer. I trust my son. Mr. President, you were the viceroy of a government that you helped overthrow in order to get in office. Your son is on the board of a radically corrupt energy company in that same country to which you are a viceroy. Because it's your son, we assume that you would have family dinners. We assume that there would be phone calls. We assume that at some point you'd see your son in passing or you'd talk to your son. If it's, hey son, can you please not use the credit card to buy hookers? Or, hey son, did you go to the crack clinic today because you seemed very high on that previous phone call? Whatever that is, it just seems like at some point you would have some level of communications with your kid. Especially since, once again, you're the viceroy of a puppet government where he was on an energy company where he knew nothing about oil and gas and knew nothing about Ukraine. And he was basically getting a paycheck because his last name was Biden. Look, every crackhead would love to be getting that much money. What, $80,000, $50,000 to $80,000 a month just for a last name. Joe Biden is asked that question, and at this point, I think it's pretty clear that Joe Biden just lied. It didn't make logical sense even in that moment because, again, these people are in these positions and nobody is supposed to talk. There are no family outings. There are no phone calls. Nobody brings up the fact that this was an issue. And the fact of the matter is, they knew this was an issue going all the way back in the Obama era. This. Hunter Biden, Ukraine work raised concerns with Obama officials. GOP-led probe confirms. Whatever the problems with the probe, if a person said it, they said it. And in that very specific case, it made it clear that they were aware, hey, there are serious ethical concerns with this arrangement. This is a problem. All right. The GOP has been putting a huge amount of focus and attention on Hunter Biden. And Fox News has been running all sorts of articles at this point. They've been dumping a lot of attention. Now, the question that I have is, are they dumping a lot of attention because they want to use Hunter Biden almost like a smear job in order to go after Biden by association? Which, I'm sorry, would be stupid. Or are they using Hunter Biden as a crawl to Joe Biden, meaning building a case against Hunter Biden showing this level of corruption and making the point of saying, and yeah, we also have evidence that his dad was in on it. If it's that, that makes more sense, especially going into the election when Republicans are probably going to take the House and the Senate, and they would have all sorts of power in possession of those offices to hold investigations to do so. Right here. This is the latest on the Hunter Biden thing. GOP lawmakers demand Hunter Biden's communications with Obama White House. They're gaining momentum on this. Meaning whatever the stuff was just in right-wing media, this is no longer just in right-wing media. Right here. Washington Post. Inside Hunter Biden's multi-million-dollar deals with Chinese energy company. Washington Post. And let's not forget, New York Times coming out with this, which ended up being a bombshell. Not because of what was in it, but because of the fact that the New York Times ran it and that they basically legitimize New York Post. And keep in mind, New York Post was put in Twitter jail for running the exact same information. They said it wasn't true. They said it was bogus. New York Times even ran an article saying, oh, the New York Post reporting on the Hunter Biden laptop stuff is just farcical. Nonsense. The New York Times, in this article, buried deep in the article, makes the point that the laptop was legit and makes the point that the emails, by extension, were also legitimate and that the feds were looking at those emails in the way that they were considering their case against Hunter Biden. It was real. It's always been real. It's been real the entire time. And they could have determined that the entire time. They tried to hide it. Now, on some level, I think a lot of this has to do with the Republicans that might have had that information that weren't necessarily in complete alliance with Trump. And it may be even that they just thought this stuff is toxic and we're not going to get any kind of momentum around it. Well, at this point, considering you have basically the New York Times, the Washington Post, the New York Post is still continuing to do stories. They've just legitimized the emails themselves, which means that by extension, the information in those emails is relevant. So the Washington Post comes out with this, talking about the dealings in China. Over the course of 14 months, the Chinese energy conglomerate and its executives paid $4.8 million to entities controlled by Hunter Biden and its uncle, according to government records, court documents, and newly disclosed bank statements, as well as emails contained on the copy of the laptop hard drive that purportedly belonged to Hunter Biden. It's not purportedly anymore. It did. The Post did not find evidence that Joe Biden personally benefited or knew about the details of the transactions, which took place after he had left the vice presidency and before he announced his intention to run for office, which includes a copy of et cetera, et cetera. All right. New York Times. This is important. Right here. The elder Mr. Biden now oversees the Justice Department that is carrying out the investigation on Hunter Biden. Now remember when Comey was under Loretta Lynch. And Comey made the point that Loretta Lynch wanted him to talk about the case in a way that was in accordance with Hillary Clinton's campaign. His son is under an investigation. Right here. People familiar with the investigation said prosecutors had examined emails between Biden, Archer, and others in Burisma and foreign business activities. Those emails were obtained by the New York Times from a cache of files that appears to have come from a laptop abandoned by Mr. Biden in a Delaware repair shop. The email and others in the cache were authenticated by people familiar with them. All right, for whatever reason, they couldn't do that immediately. In one email to Mr. Archer in April 2014, Biden outlined his vision in working with Burisma. In the email, Hunter Biden indicated that the forthcoming announcement of the trip to Ukraine by Vice President, who is referred to by the email as my guy, not by name, should be, quote, be characterized as part of our advice and thinking, but what he will say and do is out of our hands, unquote. The announcement could be a really good thing or end up creating a great expectation. We need to temper expectations regarding the visit. Vice President Joe Biden traveled to Kiev, Ukrainian capital, about a week after the email. They're talking about it in the email. Joe Biden shows up there. Is there a coordination? Did they meet? Did they talk? Etc., etc. In the same 2014 email, Hunter Biden indicated that Burisma officials need to know that in no uncertain terms that we cannot intervene directly with domestic policymakers and that we need to be able to abide by FARA and any other U.S. laws in the strictest sense of the board. Okay? So you acknowledge that you are aware that there are rules around this. Let's keep going. And another set of emails examined by prosecutors, Hunter Biden and Mr. Archer discuss inviting foreign business associates, including Burisma executive, to dinner April 2015 at a Washington restaurant where Vice President would stop by. This part is deceptive. And they are basically running interference. I don't know what else you want to call it. It is not clear whether Burisma executive attended the dinner, although Vice President Joe Biden did make an appearance, according to people familiar with the event. Okay, let's just go to the email. Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to DC and giving me the opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. It is really an honor and a pleasure. As we spoke yesterday evening, it would be great to meet today for quick coffee. What do you think? That sounds like, unless Hunter Biden has a different father, Joe Biden is the only one I know. Thank you for inviting me to DC and giving me the opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. What am I missing? What am I missing? You basically say the emails are legit. Okay. You show the very specific email that's talking about the dinner engagement. You're reading it from the email, so there's that. And yet here, you demur. You demur. Why are you demurring on that one? Why are you demurring? Why are you backing away from that? The email is very specific in regards to what it's saying. It sounds like they actually did meet. Sounds like they met. What am I missing? Still trying to run interference. Just can't go all the way, huh? My point is this. The question that needs to be answered, as they build a case for Hunter Biden and make that pivot at some point when they're trying to link these things, why did Joe Biden lie about what he knew about his son working at Burisma? And in the context of Joe Biden lying about that, that seems suspicious. That seems problematic. It seems that Joe Biden was meeting with some of these people. And despite meeting with these people, basically looked bold-faced into the eye of the American public and told them a flat-out lie that I knew nothing about what was taking place, despite the emails that attest to the fact that Joe Biden not only knew about it, but was meeting these people. Is it corrupt? We don't know because nobody has basically looked into it. And the fact that Joe Biden lied about it creates all sorts of problems around it, that questions that should be answered. Nobody's going to pay attention to it now, for whatever reason. A momentum is starting to grow around it. When Republicans take the House and the Senate, what happens? At this point, mainstream media has started reporting on this particular point. Does mainstream media also make the jump as more and more information comes out and as these emails are being fleshed out? Do they make the jump? I have no idea whether that momentum builds up to sufficient quantity where they're able to basically pursue a media case that Joe Biden needs to and should be investigated for dealings and basically lies around the relationship with Ukraine. And by the way, this is not like a frivolous thing. This is not like, oh, there's a law against smoking pot. This is not a nothing law. It is an issue if the president has business and fiduciary ties with countries that we are intimately involved in. And I mean intimately involved even to the point of knocking over the democratically elected government. And so intimately involved in, if you have a business relationship that you are basically hiding from the American public, does that create problems? And does that tweak and change and alter in any way your foreign policy? How do we know that? How do we know that? The fact that you were basically lying about it creates an issue. And yes, you can make an argument that there's an appearance of impropriety that you didn't necessarily want to deal with. But the fact that there's an appearance of impropriety kind of makes the point of there could be improprieties. It looks bad. It looked bad from jump. And yet, you lied about it. That's an issue. The questions need to be answered around that. And so, if the Republicans, again, are crawling their way to get to that particular point, that makes sense. If these stories in the media are just, we're just going to hit Hunter Biden because he's close to Joe Biden, that does not. We'll see what they do. And we'll see, for that matter, if the media even goes along with it at that point. Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks, guys.